Paradise Lost, Smyrna, 1922. The Destruction of Islam's City of Tolerance by Giles, Milton, 2009. Much of this fascinating book is written from previously unpublished diaries and letters of eyewitnesses. It paints a vivid history that few Americans today know anything about, and a history we should never forget. In the aftermath of World War I, the world was exhausted. Yet Smyrna, of biblical fame, reveled in a false sense of wealth and security. Izmir, as it is called today, had prospered through foreign trade, and the Muslim Ottoman Empire had turned a blind eye to this multicultural city of infidels for nearly 100 years. When I say infidels, I mean non-Muslims, the majority of which were Christians. With Constantinople now under control by Western allies, the Greeks falsely assumed that they could take back what Muslims had taken from them since 1453, and they could rely on Western allies for support. They therefore mustered an army to invade the Turks. Marching from Smyrna and moving inland to face the remnants of Mustafa Kemal's troops, which had rallied around Ankara, hundreds of miles to the northeast. What they found, however, was that Ankara was a very long march across remote, arid country where the Turks had reorganized into a quite efficient fighting force. After losing thousands in battle, the Greeks made a scorched earth retreat, destroying every town behind them. This, of course, inflamed the Muslim population and certainly did not rally much support from the West, which was in no condition or mood to get involved in another war. As the broken Greek soldiers began stumbling back through Smyrna in 1922, with their tails dragging, the locals could not quite believe what was happening. They had falsely assumed the Greeks had a superior military and would quickly do the Muslims in on the battlefield. Troop ships loaded up the wounded and sailed off, leaving the city at the mercy of thousands of angry, seasoned, and often drunken Turkish soldiers, who soon began showing up in pursuit of any Greek or Armenian they could find, while Allied ships were anchored in the harbor, instructed not to engage. The British, American, and French families living in the area were dismayed when some of their neighbors were soon being looted, raped, and killed in the middle of the night. Before long, the whole Armenian quarter was reduced to a smoldering rubble, and bloated bodies were beginning to appear floating in the bay. The Greek Orthodox priest, Metropolitan Chrysostom, had been hacked to death after having his eyes gouged out in true Muslim fashion. The residents stood amazed when Turkish soldiers began hosing down the city block by block with petrol and setting it ablaze. Fuel ran down the streets being poured out of large drums, so the streets were soon a fiery inferno. Allied ships rested at anchor, and those aboard watched with binoculars as tens of thousands appeared on the waterfront with nowhere to go. Turks with machine guns kept them in line. Many jumped in the sea and drowned to avoid the fire and the sword. British, American, Italian, and French ships continued to remain neutral and watched as thousands perished. With the stench of burning flesh and more bodies floating in the bay, conscience eventually overruled politics and military orders, and the ships began taking on refugees. After thousands had given up hope of being saved from the waterfront quay, one amazing character, Asa Jennings, a Methodist employee of the Smyrna YMCA, appeared. When all foreign help was paralyzed by politics and the fog of war, like an angel sent from heaven, he was able to shame the Greeks into allowing him to use a fleet of ships to rescue thousands of desperate people from certain doom. When Kemal took the title Ataturk, or Father of the Turks, he deported tens of thousands more Greeks and Armenians from Turkey, while thousands of Turks living in Greece made their way back to Turkey as well. This was an ongoing ethnic cleansing which further dispelled the politically correct myth of Muslims and Christians living in harmony in Turkey. Thus we have the not-so-pleasant ending of a story of two nations divided by hatred and two opposing religious views. Eventually, Ataturk did, however, do away with the traditional Muslim fez cap and worked towards a secular state, yet endorsing the first official Quran published in the Turkish language in 1935. As they say, those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. Technology of warfare might change, but the fundamental theology of Islam remains the same.